up, my friends? Welcome back to another episode here on the Fit Father Project and the Fit Mother Project podcast. Today, we're joined by expert guest Barton Scott, who is going to shine a lot of light on the importance of minerals and how minerals affect our health and how having the right kind of minerals in their body can lead to the experience of vibrant energy, fast recovery, youthful memory with age, and how the converse, being mineral depleted through many different scenarios, can wreak havoc on your health. And I want to bring Barton on. We met at a medical conference earlier this year, and he has some really amazing products that he's designed with his chemical engineering background to help people remineralize their bodies. And I think he's just a great educator, and we need to have more education around minerals because most of us know that when we're eating food, we're looking for proteins, carbohydrates, healthy fats. And some of us know that there's some vitamins that we want. We want some vitamin C, some B vitamins, some vitamin A. But then there's this whole world of minerals that a lot of us don't know a lot about. The fact that we need the sodium, the potassium, and all the trace minerals that we may have, like things like boron that have a big effect on men's health. So Barton, thanks for coming on. I'm excited to have this conversation, have you teach us a lot about minerals. I want to read a little bit about your background bio before we officially have you take over the floor. So Barton Scott is a chemical engineer by training. He's used his background of being a chemical engineer coupled with a nutritionist and a researcher to found Upgraded Formulas, which is his company that designs products to help people achieve vibrant health through remineralizing their bodies. And Barton is particularly concerned when he looks out onto the world about the toxicity of modern living, the lack of nutrients in today's foods, and the fact that many people have mineral absorption issues today. So Barton, thanks for coming on and talking to us about minerals.
Anthony, so great to be on with you. Thanks.
So I think it's always appropriate to start with a little background so people can get to know your story. In an abbreviated pace of the story, how'd you get interested in studying minerals and the impact that minerals have on human health?
Yeah, it's a great question. Really, my mom was a big part of it. I had to take care of her health, or I felt like I needed to, because I was very much beginning to be a nutritionist by the time I was like 16 or so. Just had a deep passion for it. I've been supplementing because I wrestled and played other sports, but particularly wrestling where you have to make weight. I was very interested in supplementation and the clear indication between what we eat and how we feel. And now later, and we can talk about this later, we'll talk about how what we eat becomes who we are. You can certainly give a healthy person depression by stripping out just a few minerals in the body, i.e., or, being really low in those. Think about it from this perspective of, that you have these deficiencies and that you have to replenish, and yet your flow rate of your ability to replenish is being matched or outstripped by your needs to consume, right? And it's a lot like living in a deficit money-wise. You can make that analogy too. I never have, but it's very similar, right? So you need a surplus, and therefore you need a highly absorbable line of minerals to replenish these things, and we need to be testing for them. So that's what I realized was this. I found a test that's really actionable, and it was a hair test. And we've since sort of taken that out of the dark ages and made it really easy to do at home, really easy to understand, and just really beautiful.
What I want to take now is here's where I want to start. I want us to talk about, if we looked at we were in chemistry class back in high school, and if we looked at the periodic table, we would see a couple of these minerals that may be familiar for us. We'd see calcium, sodium, potassium. But then there's these other minerals like maybe zinc, copper, that are iodine, that are important for the body. Like, what are some of the common minerals? And like, what's a simple thing you could share about each of them so people can start to wrap their head around what these are if they see them on packaging labels and some of their effects and functions on the body?
Sure. Yeah. So all of the ones that you mentioned, certainly. And then also things like manganese, selenium. Manganese is great for recovering from your workout and also for memory. And most people are deficient in it, something like over 90%. So it's in one of the blend, actually two of the blends that we have. And then Yeah, then we have things like copper, which are to some extent good for thyroid function, certainly for estrogen balance or hormone balance. If anyone's doing bioidentical hormones or hormone replacement or considering that, I highly recommend doing this approach, because you'll find, I'll just tell a personal story. So when I'll be 35 soon. I started this research about 12 years ago, and I guess closer to 13 now. So in my mid to early 20s, my testosterone was below 600, which is not horrible, but for that age, it's pretty bad. Should be like 900 or so. Now at 35, with just following this program, no like hormones or anything, I'm right at 1,000. And it's I think where you should be. And that's also plenty of sun every day, a lot of, de-stressing, all sorts of stuff. So,
and you're taking copper and boron and zinc, and like what other things are you taking specifically for testosterone?
Yeah, really just whatever the hair test says, and so tightening and tightening and tightening and tightening. So doing at least 3, but usually 4 hair tests a year for the last, 10 years. So.
Okay, so the process, so everyone's clear on this, is you basically test your minerals a couple times per year, 3-4 times per year to get a baseline. Yeah. Then you do targeted supplementation in between to get your mineral stores back up. So you're low in iodine, you take iodine, you're low in this or that, and you'll adjust accordingly and take these minerals in like drop form.
Right. Yeah, we mix it with water, but yeah, exactly. Liquids. So liquids, but also our unique absorption that we're talking about. So you get virtually all of it absorbing without having to rely on your digestive system, because most of us, if we could somehow scan all of our bodies right now, everyone listening to this, something like 90% of us have some sort of gut dysfunction or more. So just the gut's not super efficient. So why not get it straight into the red blood cells and let that distribute throughout the body? So one key thing to mention is that both our magnesium products and all of the other products do not rely on the form, like someone's favorite form of this or that or that. We only started to teach that about 10 years ago, and that's based on just a older sort of legacy process. So
you're talking about like chelated minerals are not like the kind of stuff that you're doing. So you might have magnesium glycinate or something and something bound to that, but you're basically saying your minerals are different. They don't have those traditional delivery forms.
Right. And for that reason, you may look at the form and it may say something like nanomagnesium chloride. Mm-hmm. It's put through our unique process and then bound with chloride later. But it's nothing close to, say, magnesium chloride that you would find normally. And you know that both through testing and seeing your levels move, which, was the problem initially. Every product we tested went through like a year and a half of all of us 4 trying to get our levels up. It's not the first sort of thing that you want to start a company to solve the problem, but nothing seems to solve the problem. So yeah, that's a big issue there. But the other thing is that you just feel it. You take our magnesium, and I would say just report back with your Oura Ring scores, your sleep stats. Look at your baseline. Look at the improvement. Right now, we have a sleep study going with a mutual friend of ours. I don't think I've told you this yet, though. Dr. Sachin Patel. And share a brief story there. Really cool. Sachin had COVID, and which is not really cool. But the cool part is that although he was struggling after, and his deep sleep had really crashed, and he couldn't get it back up. So it was lower than it had been. He had tried a bunch of different products, different techniques. Nothing was really working, in his words. He got some of our upgraded magnesium, and then he's like, wow, like within a bottle, I think within the first week or two, his deep sleep was deep. I know at some point within the first bottle, it was more than it had ever been. And his REM sleep improved some too. I don't remember how much the REM sleep improved, but over 30% on his deep sleep. And that is about the average on the sleep study. So he runs a group. He has over 200 doctors in the group. We then offered to send everyone a bottle so they could be in a sleep study and tracked with a company that tracks all the data from their sleep stats. So we're collecting that right now, and the early results with 30% average improvement in that.
Nice.
And that's what I mean.
And that's
when
taking magnesium before bed in the superior format that you guys have. Right. So I want to ask that question. If people are interested in being like, maybe I could take my supplementation game to the next level, I'd like to maybe get a hair test. Like, what are some of the testing will direct what you'd suggest someone supplements with, but what are some common minerals that people you do find in today's day and age benefit from supplementing with? Magnesium being one of them, but what are a couple other ones?
So like you mentioned, boron is really important for men's health. It's also generally important, sort of synonymous with intelligence. So is phosphorus. And phosphorus is great for metabolism too. And we see a lot of people so we see ratios when we're testing tests. I should mention that too, when we're looking at test results. And those ratios actually tell us things like adrenal function, thyroid function, metabolism. You have zinc and copper, which is a lot of different things, including a window, when you know how to read it, hidden copper toxicity. Selenium, really important. Really love that one because it's really synonymous. You know, people that have long, healthy lives tend to have higher levels of selenium. They also tend to age better. Also, I would say that's probably because they weren't, they're taking care of themselves like in other ways, because selenium gets depleted if you have some of the bad lifestyle habits. Selenium is really important for thyroid conversion, production, hormone production, and conversion. At the end of the day, the body still has to produce thyroid hormone. Otherwise, you're even in worse shape. Where virtually all of the energy in the body is produced is adrenals and thyroid. And when you don't have the right minerals make no mistake, they are the building block of the hormones. And just a lot of people kind of glaze over that fact. Go, yeah, but you can't if you want optimal health. Like you must understand this. It's like non-negotiable, right? Because it's that periodic table of elements, like you mentioned, that those are the elements that are here on the planet that we know of, right? So when we have that, we're looking at that and going, what am I missing? What's the overall picture when we're looking at our hair test with a consultation? And then, which we offer those too to make it easy for people. And then based on that, what do I need most? Like, and it might not be as simple as I'm low in these 3 things, or Anthony's low in these 2 or 4 things, or whatever it is. It's more about the ratios, because those are the tipping points. Those are the big levers to pull on. And then after your second and third test later on, then you start to, fine tune things more and more. So.
Okay. So, I mean, basically, if someone's interested in investigating this, your suggestion is to go to your website and get a hair test so that you can see where you're at. You get to see the ratios. And with those tests, you get a consultation where someone helps you interpret where you're at and then give you suggestions on what products might be good.
Yeah. So absolutely. I think that's the ideal place to start, really. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I mean, I think it's really fascinating. I appreciate you coming on and sharing what you have about the landscape of minerals. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing to help direct people to, taking action on this stuff? Like the theory is really nice. More minerals, helpful. Like, where do you think that a health enthusiastic dad or mom listening to this should start to get going?
Yeah. So we have something called a foundational kit, because different friends have asked me to put things together, like whatever I recommend the family. And that's really that. And I just have everyone's that's the thing. It's called that because you kind of get it, and really you need it all the time. Minerals, we can't make them, right? If you're new to this world, minerals, they're elements that you have to get through your food or through supplementation because each day, because your body's not able to make those. And like I said at the beginning of the podcast, minerals really do become personality, and that's a big part of the book that I'm writing right now. They'll be out in a few months, hopefully. And because there's just more information that's I feel like that needs to be. Like this, if everyone just heard what we've talked about today, they'd be so well off. So I really thank everyone for listening, for devoting this time, and Anthony for having me on, because to me, this is so special. It's such we are stardust. We are what the planet is made of, right? So to the extent that we ignore testing that, we're at a loss for being able to, we're automatically guessing at that point. And I don't want people to be in that space. So yes, we have supplements. Yes, we recommend supplements and consultations. We also recommend supplements that we don't make, because we're ultimately trying to help you get well from anything from ADHD that your children might be struggling with, to hormones that you might be struggling with. If you're a mom and you're listening to this, and maybe after your first or second or third child, the hormones aren't quite there, so maybe the sex drive isn't there, or the hair loss is happening, or these things. Probably the most hope-inspiring thing I can say is they really can be reversed. And you just have to have the map to do that. You have to be testing and not guessing, and really reversing it. So, and that along the way, your outward signs of health really improve, but so do your internal signs, right? I know we both believe that health happens from inside out. And it's important for performance and right now. And it's also important for living a long, healthy life too. So,
Barton, thanks for coming on. I'm Barton from Upgraded Formulas, and it was really nice hearing a lot of the different things you shared about minerals and your call to action. With how seriously you take it, I think people who are interested in this conversation should check out a hair mineral test, get one for you and your family, see where you're at, see some of these ratios. Seems like a good thing. I'd like my wife and I to do it. I think it's going to be really interesting for us to look into that. She just gave birth, so I'm sure there's some mineral deficiencies there. So, Barton, thank you for coming on. Appreciate you sharing your time today. And for everyone who's looking for links, they're going to be in the show notes. Whether you're watching this on YouTube or on our blog, there's going to be links to Barton's site, to foundational package, and some other things.
Can I mention one more thing about iodine? And that's like you just mentioned your wife. If you're planning to have another kid, or she's just planning to remineralize herself after giving birth, or as she's breastfeeding or anything like that, or anyone else listening for that matter, I would say ideally a couple of years before you get pregnant, this would be an ideal situation. You start testing and you get some of your heavy metals pushed out by mineralizing. So that's the other thing that the test covers, is heavy metals. And when you do that, you don't pass them on to the child, which otherwise you do. And there's evidence of that. And we see that all the time, because we do also hair tests on infants, only usually if they're incessantly crying. And that's usually two things: mineral balance, and actually, believe it or not, chiropractic adjustment for the baby. And they're crying because they took on a bunch of lead or mercury or arsenic or aluminum or something. And the world in a day today, a human takes in a city, as we call modern city, we ingest about 1,000 times, or we're exposed to 1,000 times more toxins, including heavy metals, which are the worst offenders, in a day than we did in a lifetime just a few hundred years ago. So just understanding that minerals play offense as well as defense against heavy metals is really important. And then the key with iodine, I always want to mention it to any mom and dad sort of audience, or any audience that might have some moms in it, because it's super important for brain development, IQ related. And like I mentioned earlier, we have some products that have small amounts of iodine. Then we have just iodine by itself. But whether you get it from us or somewhere else, just definitely get iodine at least, and be taking it daily. Everyone should. You do feel better. Your mood's slightly elevated. Your thyroid works better.
How much iodine do you recommend?
It's in really small amounts, so you don't measure for it directly. But 5 milligrams a day is like kind of a minimum. Japan eats about twice that. Mm-hmm. And then you'll see some protocols online that talk about 50 milligrams a day, and that's for replenishing the thyroid. Now that you definitely want to have a full thyroid panel, antibodies checked and things like that before you're doing some sort of megadose. So, all of this is not individual advice. Please consult, your healthcare trusted practitioner, but hopefully it's helpful as just some concepts.
Yeah. So. Concepts are definitely helpful. And thanks again for coming on and sharing that. And that last tidbit means a lot.